there's been this debate about whether the budget that Jim Chalmers handed down on Tuesday night is inflationary or not. I almost dedicated my whole show to that question last night. Chris Richardson, very senior economist, he insists that because there's such a large amount of money going into the economy as a result of the cost of living package, that it is inflationary. Labor is insisting that it's not because it's targeted and because it doesn't hit the economy in one go. It's progressive. What's your view on this? You do have a first-class economics degree, as I understand it.
Sharri, Chris is right and Labor's wrong in the short terms, and that's just clearly identified in the Labor Party's own budget papers. For those of you playing at home, you can, if you're really into it, you can flip to page 94 of budget paper number 1. It's the most important table in the budget. It says how much extra government spending in net terms the government is adding to the economy because of their own decisions. So not because of other factors or changes in economic conditions, but actual decisions the government has made in the budget to add or detract from the economic activity that we all experience. And that table shows that they're increasing spending, net spending, by $21 billion over the 5 budget years. That's, if you take out the COVID years, which were obviously a bit special, that's the biggest increase in government spending since Kevin Rudd's global financial crisis budget. And at least Kevin misspent a lot of that money. He raised it by $29 billion. He misspent a lot, but at least he had the excuse of fighting a global recession. There had to be something to do there. Now we've got 7% inflation. So why is the government adding $21 billion of spending to an economy that's already running hot? Well, now, in terms of their other claim that it's progressive, it's not. $13 billion of that $21 billion is in this financial year or next financial year. It is front-loaded in exactly the time when we're experiencing a cost of living crisis.
Yeah, well, it's a fine line between stimulus and cost of living relief. But I think the issue here, and let's bring in Christy McSweeney, who stepped in for Patrick Gorman. I think the issue here is that we're seeing the opposition demand that Middle Australia gets more support at the same time as saying the budget is too inflationary. Christy McSweeney, I mean, Peter Dutton and the opposition can't have it both ways. They can't demand more help for Middle Australia at the same time as rejecting the spending in the budget. What do you think?
Well, look, the Labor Party's in a really difficult position, or the government's in a really difficult position. They've had to fight themselves. We've seen Katie Gallagher and Kate Thwaites and other people out there progressing forward for the single parents payment to be extended to for when the child turns 14 instead of 8. They've won that fight. So Labor's left has won that fight. That's made it very difficult for Jim Chalmers on the right to balance the books in the way that he may have wanted to. We've also seen the continuing demonisation of Australia's minerals and resources sector, and none of the credit being afforded to them for their part in this surplus that the government's been able to project to bring forward. So, and of course, the government's made their bed with the Greens polling anywhere between 10% to 22% primary vote, and now they have to deal with the Greens in the Senate.
Yeah, but I want to get back to this, what the opposition's going to do. Matt Canavan, so do you think, you've just argued the budget's too inflationary, so do you think there should be no cost of living or welfare support for single parents, for people on job seeker, for people with their power bills?
Well, we have supported some targeted relief for power bills. That $21 billion in extra spending, that was $1.5 billion. So put that in context, Sharri. Well, I'll wait to see what Peter has to say tonight about the broader policy situation. But what do you think? You're on the backbench for a reason, so you can give your opinion. Exactly. I was just about to get there. But yeah, I don't support an increase in the job seeker rate. I've said that for many months. I used to before COVID, but we have very strong economic conditions right now, and those people that are receiving the dole, they are obviously struggling. But the dole payments, the unemployment benefits, are going up by inflation. They're tied to CPI, so they're going up by 8% or 7% now a year. And those of your viewers who are working for a wage, they're not getting an 8% increase in their wage. So how can it all be justifiable that we would give 8% plus to people who are not working, but those who are working have to suffer a real wage decline? That's not fair. It's not right. And I don't think that's where our priorities should be right now.
Very difficult political argument, though, Christy, for Peter Dutton to run ahead of the next election. If he does tonight, and he's giving his budget reply speech, if he does say that he's going to oppose the increase to JobSeeker and other payments, the single parent change, lift from 8 to 14 years for the youngest child, you know, this will be politically difficult for Peter Dutton to argue that people doing it tough shouldn't get more help.
It will be hugely difficult. I look forward, like everybody else does, for seeing the budget in reply speech tonight delivered at 7:30. Look, nobody wants to see vulnerable Australians face more hardship, and the opposition is going to get into dangerous territory, looking angry and looking like they don't want to give people the benefit of more welfare. We've seen over years and years and years, going back to John Howard time, that JobSeeker and some of these payments have been a bit underdone. So I agree with Senator Canavan that, of course, it's very difficult for people to say that why should they get a significant jump at this point, but they have been underdone over many, many periods. It's about the messaging. The Coalition has said they support some strengthening of welfare measures, but not all. They'll take a look at the legislation. They have to be very careful not to pick on women about the Parents Next and the childcare payments, though. That's not going to do the Coalition any favours, considering that's a core demographic that they need to regain support from.